The millionaire and the contract bride stayed after the holidays on the Maine coast. The millionaire opens the cabin door, and the cold rushes in before either of them speaks. Wind moves fast along the Maine coast, pushing gray waves against dark rock. The sky is low, heavy, unfinished. Ethan steps inside first, shoulders squared, as if entering a boardroom that no longer needs him. Clara follows, closing the door quietly, careful not to let it slam. No greeting, no plan. On the wall beside them, a calendar hangs, still turned to a month that has already passed. The holidays are over. The noise is gone. So why are they still here together? And what is going to happen to them now? The lock turns once, then settles. Inside, the cabin feels colder than it should. Wooden walls, a narrow table, a wide window facing the sea. Nothing personal, nothing claimed. Ethan sets his suitcase down near the door. It lands with weight, solid and final. He adjusts the handle, straightens it, then leaves it where it is. Clara places her bag beside his. Hers is smaller, softer. She does not check it again. They remove their coats in silence. Ethan moves with efficiency, practiced and exact. Clara hangs his coat on the hook before her own, not as a gesture, simply because it is closer. In the kitchen, she fills the kettle with water. The sound cuts through the quiet, steady and clear, then stops. When she switches it on, a small light appears and holds. Ethan walks toward the window. Outside, the Atlantic stretches wide and gray, endless in a way that does not invite comfort. Waves roll in without urgency. He rests his hand against the glass, fingers flat, not pressing, not pulling away. Behind him, on the wall near the table, a paper calendar hangs slightly crooked. The month printed at the top is wrong now. One date is circled in red. Neither of them says anything. Clara pours coffee into 2 mugs. Steam rises slowly, then fades. She sets one mug on the table where Ethan will sit. She does not ask if you want coffee. She does not ask how long they are staying. She does not ask what happens after this. She sits, both hands around her cup, and waits. After a moment, Ethan joins her. The chair slides back softly. He takes one sip, sets the mug down. No reaction. The silence does not demand explanation. Ethan reaches for his phone, then stops. He turns it face down on the table. Across from him, Clara notices, but does not look twice. Outside, a gull cries once and disappears into the wind. Ethan stands again and opens a box near the wall. Inside are documents, neatly stacked, edges sharp and clean. He flips through them without reading, then closes the box and pushes it back under the table. Clara rinses the mugs when they are finished. She places them upside down on a towel, aligned side by side. They move around the cabin without touching, without avoiding each other. Close enough to sense presence. Far enough to keep space intact. No one mentions the contract that brought them here. No one mentions when they will leave. The ocean continues its steady rhythm, indifferent and constant. And as the light outside shifts almost imperceptibly, one quiet question settles into the room, unanswered, waiting for the days ahead to reveal whether this silence will hold or break. Morning arrives without ceremony. Light slips through the window in thin layers, pale and undecided. The sea is quieter today, almost flat, as if holding something back. Ethan wakes before the kettle clicks on. He is already dressed when Clara enters the kitchen, hair still loose, sleeves pushed up. She pauses for half a second when she sees him standing there, fully awake, looking out at the water as if the night never happened. She does not ask how long he has been up. She fills the kettle anyway. The routine begins again, familiar, almost practiced. Coffee grounds measured. Water poured. 2 mugs is set out without discussion. Outside, the forest edge darkens the path along the coast. The air feels colder than yesterday, sharper. Ethan puts on his coat. Clara reaches for hers, then hesitates. She watches him for a moment, the way his hand closes around the door handle, firm, controlled. He opens the door and steps out without waiting. She follows. They walk along the narrow trail that curves between trees and rock. Pine needles crunch underfoot. The ocean stays just within sight, never fully gone. They walk side by side, not touching. Their steps begin out of sync, then slowly fall into the same rhythm. Halfway down the path, Ethan stops. Not abruptly, just enough. He looks at the ground, then back toward the cabin, barely visible through the trees. His hand tightens around the strap of his watch. Clara waits. After a moment, he continues walking, as if nothing interrupted the pace. She notices the watch then. The band is unfamiliar, dark leather instead of metal, worn at the edges. It does not match the rest of him. She does not comment. They return to the cabin without speaking. Inside, the warmth has settled into the space, subtle but present. Clara moves toward the table to clear it, then stops. One of the mugs is missing. She looks at the counter, the sink, the drying towel. Nothing. Ethan is at the window again, coat still on. She reaches into the cabinet and takes out another mug, identical to the others. She places it where the first one had been, aligned careful. When she pours the coffee, her hand pauses for a fraction of a second, as if measuring something invisible. They sit. Ethan drinks without looking at her. He sets the mug down closer to the edge of the table than before. After a while, he reaches for his phone. He does not turn it on. He places it back in his pocket instead. Clara clears the table when they are done. She wipes the surface slowly, once, then again, as if expecting something to appear. In the living area, Ethan opens the same box from yesterday. He removes one folder this time, thinner than the others. He sets it on the table, then pushes it aside without opening it. The folder stays there. Clara passes by it once. Then again, she does not touch it. Later, as the day stretches on, the quiet shifts. Not heavier, just different. Ethan stands near the door, keys in his hand. Clara looks up from the chair. He does not explain where he is going. He does not say he will be back. He hesitates, just long enough to notice. Then he sets the keys down. The sound is small, but it lands clearly in the room. He turns away from the door. The afternoon light fades slowly, dragging shadows across the floor. Clara moves the folder slightly, just enough to straighten it. She does not open it. Outside, the tide changes direction. Inside, nothing is said, and somewhere in the quiet between them, a question begins to form, not loud enough to answer yet, but present all the same. If this routine is meant to heal, why does it feel like something has already begun to pull away? Some stories unfold slowly. If you're still here, stay with them a little longer. The next morning does not announce itself. Light arrives slowly, spreading across the floor in a thin band that stops just short of the table. The ocean looks closer today, darker, as if the water has moved in overnight. Clara is already awake. She sits near the window with a book open on her lap, though she has not turned the page. Outside, a fishing boat passes far out on the horizon, small and steady. Behind her, a floorboard creaks. Ethan steps into the room. He pauses when he sees her there, as if he expected the space to be empty. For a moment, he does not move. Then he walks past her toward the kitchen, careful not to disturb the quiet. Clara closes the book. She follows him. The kettle fills. The switch clicks. The routine holds, but something about it feels slightly off, like a note played half a beat late. Ethan sets 2 mugs on the counter this time. Clara notices. She pours the coffee without comment. When she hands him his mug, their fingers almost touch. Almost. He pulls his hand back first. They sit at the table. The chairs are closer today than yesterday. Not by much. Outside, wind moves through the trees, low and constant. Ethan takes a sip, then another. He looks toward the folder, still resting at the edge of the table, the same one from the day before. Clara notices his glance. She waits. He reaches for the folder, slides it closer, then stops. His hand stays there for a moment, resting on the cover, before he pulls it back again. Instead, he stands. He walks to the window and looks out, longer than before. His reflection overlaps with the sea beyond the glass. Clara remains seated. After a while, she stands and moves to the counter to rinse her mug. She does not rush. The sound of water fills the space between them. When she turns back, Ethan is holding his phone. The screen lights up. For a second, Clara thinks she understands. She expects him to step away, to turn his body. Slightly, to lower his voice. He does none of those things. He looks at the screen, then turns the phone off completely. He sets it down on the table, face up this time. Clara's eyes flicker toward it before she looks away. She reaches for a towel and dries her hands slowly. Ethan sits again. The phone stays where it is. Minutes pass. The sound of the ocean drifts in through the window, steady and unchanging. Finally, Ethan pushes a chair back. "I need some air," he says. The words are simple, neutral. Clara nods once. He pulls on his coat and reaches for the door. This time, he hesitates longer than before. His hand rests on the handle, unmoving. Clara does not look at him. After a moment, the door opens and closes softly behind him. She remains where she is. Outside, his footsteps fade along the path. Clara walks to the window and watches him until he disappears into the trees. She notices the way his shoulders square as he walks, the pace measured, controlled. On the table, the phone vibrates once. Then again. She does not touch it. She does not look at it. The vibration stops. Later, when Ethan returns, his coat is damp with sea mist. He hangs it by the door and stands there, as if deciding something. Clara meets his eyes. He opens his mouth, then closes it. Instead, he walks past her and sits at the table. The phone is gone. The folder remains. The routine resumes, but the room feels different now. Closer, tighter. As the afternoon light shifts, a thought settles quietly into the space between them. What if the thing that seemed like distance was not distance at all? And what if the answer they think they're waiting for is not the one that actually matters? If you have stayed this far, stay a little longer. Not everything becomes clear when you think it will. Rain begins in the early afternoon. Not sudden, not loud, just steady enough to change the sound of everything else. Clara notices it first when the light near the window dims and the ocean disappears behind a veil of gray. She stands and closes the curtains halfway, leaving a thin strip of water and sky still visible. Ethan is in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, drying a plate. This is new. He has not done this before. She pauses long enough to register it, then turns back to the window without comment. The power flickers once. Then again, the lights go out. For a moment, the cabin holds its breath. Ethan sets the plate down carefully. He does not curse. He does not reach for his phone. He walks to the drawer and pulls out a flashlight, placing it on the table without turning it on. Clara lights a candle from the stove. The flame settles, small but steady. They stand there, facing the same problem, neither rushing to solve it. Outside, the rain strengthens. Wind pushes against the windows harder now, testing the frame. Ethan moves first. He checks the breaker panel, flips one switch, then another. Nothing changes. He closes the panel and steps back. "Looks like it will pass," he says. The words are calm, certain. Clara nods. They decide to cook anyway. The meal is simple. Soup warms slowly on the stove. Bread torn by hand instead of sliced. They eat at the table, candle between them, shadows shifting across the walls. This is not what the viewer expects from him. He pours water into her glass without asking, breaks the bread unevenly, then slides the larger piece toward her. Clara notices. She does not refuse it. Halfway through the meal, Ethan glances toward the window again. The rain has blurred the view completely now. "I should check the road later," he says. "Not now. Later." Clara looks up. "The road." He nods. "In case it gets worse." She waits for him to say more. He does not. They finish eating in silence. When Ethan stands to clear the table, Clara stops him with a small gesture. She takes the plates instead. Another shift. Small. Quiet. When the lights return, neither of them reacts. The candle stays lit. Ethan walks to the box near the wall, the one that has been opened and closed too many times. He kneels, reaches inside, and pulls out a folded map. Not documents. Not contracts. A map. He spreads it on the table and smooths it with both hands. The creases are old. Familiar. Clara watches from where she stands, leaning lightly against the counter. This does not match what she thought she understood. He traces a line along the coast with one finger, stops near a small mark, folds the map again, and returns it to the box. He does not explain. Later, as evening settles in, Ethan pulls on his coat. Clara looks up from the chair. I will be back before dark, he says. She nods once. He opens the door, then stops. This time he turns back. You can lock it if you want, he says. The words land differently than intended. Clara meets his eyes. I know, she replies. He hesitates, then leaves. She locks the door after him. Outside, the rain softens, then fades. The wind dies down. When Ethan returns, he carries nothing in his hands. No groceries, no papers, no answers. He removes his coat and hangs it carefully. He does not go to the table. He does not sit. Instead, he walks to the window and stands there, looking out at the dark water. Clara joins him, standing a step away. They watch the sea together, both quiet, both present. The assumption that something was being avoided no longer fits. Neither does the idea that he is preparing to leave. As night settles over the coast, a new question replaces the old one. If he is not running from something and not moving toward something else, then what exactly is he choosing to stay with? If you are still listening, do not look for answers yet. Some truths only show themselves after everything you thought you knew has been gently turned upside down. Morning arrives later than expected. The sky stays low, thick with cloud, holding the light back. The ocean is calm again, almost flat, as if the storm never passed. Clara wakes to the sound of movement. Not outside, inside. She sits up and listens. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. When she enters the kitchen, Ethan is already there. He is not making coffee. He is standing at the table, the box open in front of him. The folder is no longer inside. He does not look up when she stops in the doorway. Instead, he reaches into the box again and pulls out something else. A thin envelope, worn, creased along the edges. He sets it down between them. This was supposed to be done months ago, he says. The words land quietly, but they change the shape of the room. Clara steps closer. She does not reach for the envelope. What was, she asks. Ethan exhales once, slow and controlled. He opens the envelope and slides a single page onto the table. Not a contract, not a legal document. A letter, handwritten. The paper looks older than everything else they have seen. I did not come here to disappear, Ethan says. I came here to stop avoiding this. Clara looks at the page without reading it. So you were not planning to leave? She says. No, he replies. That answer settles something. It also unsettles something else. He folds the letter carefully and places it back into the envelope. He does not hand it to her. This place, he continues, was the only one that made sense. For what? Clara asks. For doing something without an audience. The words feel heavier than they should. Outside, a car passes on the distant road. The sound is faint but noticeable. Ethan glances toward the window. For the first time, he says, nothing is waiting for me to return a call. Clara studies him. The way he stands. The way his shoulders remain squared, even now. So what happens after this? She asks. Ethan looks down at the envelope again. That depends, he says. On what? She wants to ask. He answers before she does. On whether staying quiet is enough. They sit. Coffee is made later than usual. The mugs do not end up where they normally do. The routine bends, but it does not break. After breakfast, Ethan puts on his coat. Clara watches him from the chair. I'm going to town, he says. Her eyes lift. To finish something, he adds. That is new. She nods. This time, he does not hesitate at the door. When he leaves, Clara does not lock it right away. She walks to the table and looks at the envelope again. Still untouched. Hours pass. The light shifts. The tide moves out, then slowly returns. When Ethan comes back, he is not alone. A car idles briefly outside before driving away. Ethan steps inside, carrying a small cardboard box. He sets it on the table and opens it. Inside are keys. Not one set. Several. Different shapes. Different tags. Clara stands. What are those? She asks. Ethan does not answer immediately. They are exits, he says finally. Options I never used. He closes the box and slides it toward her. I am done pretending I need all of them. That explains part of it, but not all. Clara looks from the box to his face. And the contract? She asks. Ethan meets her gaze. That was supposed to be temporary, he says. This is not. The statement shifts the ground beneath them, not because it promises something, but because it removes an assumption they both relied on. Outside, the ocean continues its steady rhythm. Inside, a new logic begins to form. If this was never about running away, then the question is no longer why he stayed. It is what he is willing to give up now that he has stopped leaving. If you're still here, stay, because the quiet that protected them may soon demand a choice neither of them planned to make. The change does not arrive all at once. It begins with a sound, a phone ringing. Not Ethan's, Clara's. She is in the kitchen when it happens, hands in warm water, a plate slipping slightly in her grip. The sound feels out of place here, sharp against the quiet they have been building. She dries her hands and checks the screen. Unknown number. She hesitates, then answers. Ethan hears her voice change, just enough to notice. Yes, she says. Then nothing. Then I understand. She ends the call and stands still for a moment, phone still in her hand. Ethan does not ask who it was. He watches her instead. They move the meeting, Clara says finally. They did not wait. Ethan nods once. He does not say sorry. That would make it smaller than it is. Later that morning, his phone rings too. This time he answers. Clara hears only fragments. Names she does not recognize. A pause that stretches too long. His voice stays calm, but the words slow down, like he is choosing them carefully. No, he says. Then, that was already decided. Another pause. I'm aware of the consequences. He ends the call and sets the phone down. For the first time since arriving, the quiet feels exposed. I need to leave tomorrow, Ethan says. Not an explanation. A statement. Clara looks up. For how long? She asks. He does not answer right away. That depends on how much damage is already done, he says. The words hang between them. That night, the routine fails. Coffee is made too strong. Dinner is left half-finished. The candle burns low without being replaced. They sit on opposite sides of the room. Clara picks up the envelope again. This time, she opens it. The letter is short. Handwritten. Dated years ago. She reads it once. Then again. She does not look at Ethan when she finishes. So, this is not just about choosing to stay, she says. It is about what you did not choose back then. Ethan does not deny it. And now, she asks. Now, he replies. It is about what cannot be undone. That is the moment something cracks. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough. The next morning, Ethan packs. Not everything. Just what he needs. Clara watches from the doorway. You said the contract was temporary, she says. It was, he answers. And now? Ethan stops, shirt in his hands. Now it is the only thing that still protects us from pretending. She steps back. That is not protection, she says. That is distance. He closes the suitcase. Outside, the car waits. Ethan stands by the door longer than usual. This is not an ending, he says. Clara meets his eyes. That does not make it safe, she replies. He leaves. The cabin feels different immediately. Not empty. Unbalanced. Hours pass. Clara walks the path alone. The forest feels closer than before. The ocean louder. When she returns, there's a message on the table. Not a note. A printed email. She reads it once. Then she sits down. Ethan returns after dark. His coat smells like rain and asphalt. His shoulders are tense in a way they were not before. They froze the account, he says. Temporarily. Clara nods. And the board, she asks. They will not wait. They had already been preparing for this. After that sentence, the room changes in ways neither of them names. Ethan does not reach for his phone again. He leaves it on the table, face down, as if distance can be measured in inches. When he moves through the cabin, his steps are quieter, more deliberate, like someone learning the limits of space that no longer belongs to him. Clara notices the small shifts first. The way he does not check the weather. The way he does not set reminders. The way he pauses before actions that used to be automatic. She adjusts without announcing it, sliding tasks into the empty spaces, carrying the weight without claiming it. That evening, dinner is late. Not forgotten. Just delayed. The soup cools before either of them sits. When they finally do, they eat without matching pace. One finishes first. One keeps going. The candle burns lower than usual, wax spilling onto the table in a thin line that no one wipes away. Later, Ethan opens his laptop. The screen lights the room briefly, then goes dark. He closes it without typing a single word. He rubs his hands together once, then rests them flat on the table, palms down. Clara stands by the sink, drying a plate that is already dry. She sets it back in a cabinet, then realizes it does not belong there. She moves it again, then stops, leaving it slightly out of place. Neither comments. The night stretches longer than before. Sleep comes in pieces, broken and uneven. By morning, the routine no longer fits cleanly. Coffee spills where it never has. A chair scrapes too loudly. The quiet holds, but it strains. Something has shifted from choice to consequence, and both of them can feel it, even without words. Silence stretches again, but it no longer holds them the same way. Staying has a cost, Clara says quietly. So does leaving, Ethan replies. They stand there, the space between them wider now, harder to cross. Nothing can return to how it was. The decisions made in quiet have reached beyond this cabin, beyond the coast, beyond the safety of routine. And now, the question is no longer whether they can stay. It is whether they can survive what staying has already taken from them. If you're still listening, stay close. Because when safety breaks, the next choice always comes faster than expected. The morning does not wait for agreement. Light enters the cabin the same way it always has, low and quiet, touching the edge of the table before moving across the floor. The ocean keeps its rhythm, unchanged by what happened the night before. Clara is awake when Ethan comes into the kitchen. He has not slept much. Neither has she. It shows, not in their faces, but in how carefully they move around each other now. Coffee is made without coordination this time. 2 mugs. Same counter. Different timing. They sit but not together. Ethan breaks the silence first. I have to go back to the city, he says. Not for a meeting. For a decision. Clara looks at him. Yours, she says. And theirs, he replies. She nods slowly. What happens if you do not? She asks. They replace me, he says. Quietly. Legally. And if you do? Ethan pauses. Then this place becomes something I cannot return to. The words land between them, heavy, unavoidable. Clara looks down at her mug. So staying here, she says, was never neutral. No, hice un place. It was a choice. I just delayed admitting it. She sets her mug down. There is something you need to understand, Clara says. If you go back and fix what broke out there, this does not come with you. Ethan meets her eyes. I know. And if you stay, she continues, what you lose does not disappear just because you wanted something else. I know that too. They sit with it. No raised voices. No sudden movement. Just the shape of 2 futures pressing in from opposite sides. Ethan stands and walks to the window. He looks out at the water, then back at the room, as if measuring what fits where. This contract, he says, was supposed to protect us from expectation. And now, Clara asks, now it is the only thing that makes this clean. She exhales once. Clean does not mean fair, she says. No, he agrees. It just means honest. The phone rings again. This time, Ethan does not answer immediately. He looks at Clara. She does not nod. She does not shake her head. She says, do not ask me to decide for you. I am not, he replies. I'm asking you to stay where you are. The phone stops ringing, then starts again. Ethan answers. Yes, he says. Then I understand. A pause. I will be there tonight. He ends a call. The sound of it feels final, even if nothing is final yet. Clara stands. So this is where we stop pretending the quiet was enough, she says. Yes, Ethan replies. She walks to the bedroom and pulls out her bag. She does not pack everything, just what she needs. Ethan watches from the doorway. You do not have to leave, he says. I do, she answers. Because staying while you decide makes me part of a choice that is not mine. He nods. That hurts more than if she had argued. They stand there, close, not touching. I will not ask you to wait, Ethan says. And I will not promise that I will, Clara replies. She walks past him and opens the door. Cold air enters the cabin again, just like the first day. She pauses on the threshold. This mattered, she says. Yes, Ethan answers. It still does. She leaves. The door closes. Ethan stands alone in the quiet they built together. For the first time, the routine does not return. Not because it failed, but because choices have replaced it. If you have stayed this long, stay a little longer. Because when no option is perfect, what comes next is not about winning or losing. It is about what each of them is willing to live without. Night falls before Ethan realizes how quiet the cabin has become. Not the gentle quiet they learned together. This one is hollow, unanswered. He does not turn on the lights. Instead, he sits at the table where the two mugs used to line up, with a folder once waited to be opened, where choices were postponed long enough to feel safe. His phone lies in front of him. It does not ring. In the city, the board meeting begins without him. That is the first thing he does that cannot be taken back. He powers the phone off. Outside, the ocean is black now, the water barely visible, the sound heavier than before. Wind pushes against the windows, harder than it did the night of the storm. Ethan stands and walks to the box by the wall. He opens it fully this time. No hositaschen. Inside, beneath the map and the keys and the papers he never finished, there is one more envelope. This one is newer. He takes it out and opens it. The document inside is not handwritten. It is printed, official, a resignation letter, signed, dated, tomorrow. He reads it once, then again. His name looks different on the page, stripped of titles, stripped of position. He folds it carefully and places it in his coat pocket. Outside, headlights appear briefly on the road, then disappear. Inside the cabin, the door opens. Clara steps in, breath catching slightly from the cold. She does not expect him to be there. They stand across from each other, the space between them filled with everything they did not say earlier. "You came back," Ethan says. "So did you," Clara replies. She notices his coat. The way it is already on. The way his keys are not on the table. "You did not go," she says. "No," he answers. She waits. He does not explain. Instead, he reaches into his pocket and places the folded letter on the table between them. She does not touch it. "What is that?" she asks. "My exit," Ethan replies. "The only one that matters." Clara looks at the envelope for a long moment. "And the cost?" she asks. Ethan meets her eyes. "I lose the company," he says. "I lose the board. I lose the version of myself that made those things possible." Clara exhales slowly. "And what do you gain?" Ethan does not answer right away. "Truth," he says finally, "even if it does not forgive me." She steps closer to the table. "That letter," she says, "changes everything." "Yes," he replies, "and you cannot undo it." "No, that is the second thing that cannot be taken back." Silence stretches, tight but unbroken. "There is something you still do not know," Clara says. Ethan looks up. She reaches into her bag and pulls out a folded paper of her own. Not a contract, not a letter, a notice. She places it beside his. "I was offered a position," she says. "Back home, before we came here." Ethan's breath stills. "I did not tell you," she continues. "Because it did not matter then." "And now?" he asks. "Now it does." They stand there, the table between them, holding two lives moving in opposite directions at the same time. "If you stay," Clara says, "you give up who you were. And if you leave," Ethan replies, "you give up what we almost became." She looks at him, steady, unflinching. "This was never about almost," she says. Outside, the wind rises again, sharp and insistent. Inside, the truth finally has nowhere left to hide. Two irreversible actions. Two revealed truths. The quiet that once protected them breaks open, not with noise, but with clarity. And standing there, with no contract left to hide behind, Ethan and Clara face the only question that matters now. Not whether they can stay, but whether they're willing to become something entirely different to do so. Morning returns quietly. The storm has passed. The sky opens in thin layers of light, pale and steady, touching the water before it reaches the shore. The ocean looks the same as it always has, but something about the rhythm feels slower now, more deliberate. Ethan stands at the window, coffee untouched on the table behind him. The resignation letter is no longer in his coat pocket. It rests inside the box by the wall, folded neatly, place where it can be found again if needed. The keys are gone. All of them. Clara sits near the table, her bag closed at her feet. They have not spoken much since the night before. They do not need to. The silence has changed shape. It no longer protects them, but it no longer hides anything either. Ethan turns from the window. I will drive you to the station, he says. Clara nods. They prepare to leave the cabin the same way they arrived. Slowly, without instructions. No ruse, no ceremony. When they step outside, the air feels colder than before, sharper, as if asking them to stay awake. The drive is quiet. Trees pass by. The road curves inland, away from the water. The radio stays off. At the station, Ethan parks and turns off the engine. Neither of them moves right away. This is not where we thought we would end, Clara says. No, Ethan replies. But it is where we stop pretending. She opens the door, then pauses. Do not disappear, she says. He meets her eyes. I already did that once, he answers. I'm not doing it again. She steps out of the car. They stand there, not touching, not turning away. No promises made. No future is claimed. Clara walks toward the platform. Ethan watches until she disappears into the crowd. When he returns to the cabin later that day, it feels larger, not emptier, just honest. He opens the windows and lets the sea air move through the rooms. He clears the table, washes the mugs, sets them back in the cabinet. One mug less than before. He leaves it that way. That evening, Ethan sits at the table with a blank sheet of paper. No lettereath, no logo, no audience. He writes slowly, not to resign, not to explain, but to begin something that does not require permission. Outside, the tide moves in again, steady, unremarkable. Days pass. The cabin becomes quieter, but not still. Ethan walks the same paths Clara once did. He cooks simple meals. He keeps the routines that worked and lets the others go. In the city, decisions are made without him. In the cabin, time returns to its original shape. Weeks later, a letter arrives. Not from aboard. From Clara. It is short. She does not explain where she is. She does not ask what he has done. She writes about a place with different light. About work that feels smaller, but more exact. About learning how to arrive somewhere without losing herself. At the end, there's one line. Some things only make sense after you stop trying to control them. Ethan folds the letter and places it in the box. Not hidden, not displayed, just there. That night, he steps outside and looks at the ocean again. The same water, the same horizon, a different order. No contract defines it now. No role protects it. There is no ending here. No promise of reunion. No certainty of return. Only a life rearranged around what was chosen and what was let go. If you stayed with them until now, stay a moment longer. Because not every story ends with everything restored. Some end with the quiet understanding that something truer has taken its place. And sometimes that is enough.